I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's agenda meeting where we will be reviewing the action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday, November 1. And we got Election Day coming up. I know we have a meeting after Election Day, and it kind of threw me for a loop. We're still a couple weeks away.
Yes, sir.
So let's call upon our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrows, to review those action items.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. That evening, you'll have one proclamation and a couple of announcements. Acknowledgement of the mayor, or acknowledgement by the mayor of our meeting dates from January through June of 23, and naming Director Holliday as the assistant mayor for January through June. The first item is consider resolution R22-165, a resolution awarding a bid to Rush Truck Centers of Arkansas, Inc. for the purchase of 2 5-yard dump trucks in the amount of $228,282.34. And our utilities director, Monty Ledbetter, will discuss the item.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Board members, staff is recommending awarding a bid for 2 International MB 607 SBA 5-yard dump trucks with hill-built beds to Rush Truck Center of Arkansas, North Little Rock. One of these trucks will be used in our water distribution division, replacing truck number 7704. It's a 2000 International dump truck. The other will be used in our wastewater collection division, replacing unit number 7544. And it's a 1999 GMC dump truck. Both of these are, of course, older trucks, as you can see, and they're in need of much repair, just not worth repairing. It's time to replace them. We put these out for bid. Rush Truck Center was the lowest bidder. And the total number for both of these trucks for budget purposes is $228,282.34. And we did plan for this in this year's budget.
Do we have any questions? Director Garcia?
Will these old ones be able to be sold for salvage or anything?
We will put them on a PTR list, and they will be either sold as is. I'm sure they'll be sold as is. So somebody might take them and use them.
They'll be in surplus sales.
Value left on the books on them?
There's not.
Okay, thank you. Well, I didn't expect it.
Director Trustin?
I have a question.
Director Trustin?
Yes.
Are these trucks available, or do you have to order them and they're built? Or
They're
what?
they're available. I think the delivery time on them, it's going to be, let's see. Of course, the trucks are available. The beds are going to have to be built.
Okay.
I was trying to remember. I was thinking they told us. Well, let me look here. Good question. I should know that. I think it was 3 to 6 months, I believe. If I'm not seeing it right offhand, but I can get you an answer on that.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? Thank you.
Next item is resolution R22-166, a resolution awarding a bid to Greenway Equipment, Inc. for the purchase of 2 compact excavators. And again, Mr. Ledbetter.
Okay. Yeah, staff is recommending awarding these 2 John Deere 35Gs. These are compact excavators with the hydro hammer hose on them from Greenway Equipment in Weiner, Arkansas. These will be used in our distribution system, replacing unit number 9330 and a number 9331. Both are 2013 John Deeres. We use these compact excavators all the time when we have to get in people's backyards and things to work on our right-of-ways. These are small enough excavators, we can usually get through their fence without having to do a lot of damage to their privacy fences and things. So we had 3 bidders on this. This company was the low bidder. Both of these machines are totaling up to $110,940, and we did budget funds for 2020 for this.
2022.
2022, sorry.
Any questions from board members on this item? Look like Director Trustee, he wants to get on and drive it and see if he can.
Well, I just wondered if Jason Aldean was going to deliver it. You know, he's on their commercials on TV, so Greenway Equipment. No, I shouldn't be on one driving it. No.
Director Trustee, it looks like 180 days, within 180 days on the trucks that,
Within 180.
within 180.
So we go ahead and obligate those funds and then
Yes.
just show them.
As we close the year, where we have POs and other equipment
Right.
sitting out there, we'll bring that as a reappropriation.
But they get encumbered.
Yeah, very similar to what we do at college. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do a PO, and we'll put them on the books, so they'll be encumbered funds at
Right.
that time.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Resolution R22-167, a resolution applying for and accepting a grant with the State of Arkansas National Highway Safety Administration for 1 full-time clerk and travel expenses for educational purposes for the district court staff, and our court administrator, Chris Burrow, is here to discuss this item.
Good afternoon. The grant we have received for the last 12 years, I have to apologize on the step coming into this position. I did not originally request to apply for the grant. However, we did apply for it. We did get it. It does help with continuing education for our travel, our DWI clerk. It also pays for waivers and different deals, different forms that does not come out of our budget for office supplies. Now, in our DWI court, we currently have 25 that participate in our treatment specialty court. But from 1 year, from September 1st of 21 till current date of 9/1, we had 413 DWIs in this county. So again, we do have the grant. It's been awarded to us. We just need to accept it.
The grant does have a match of about $41,000, and we have that in the budget.
All right, Director Trustee, you had a question?
What is the dollar amount of the grant? Did I miss that?
73.
It's 80, right at 83,000, and we have a little over 41,000
83 with a
budget for
41
that.
match. Okay.
Yes.
Very
It's
good.
50-50 match.
Okay.
Any further questions?
That match also comes out of the probation fund, not one that we share expenses with the county.
Thank you.
Clarification, real
Oh,
quick.
Director Holliday?
Yeah.
So 50-50 match, like 1-to-1 or 2-to-1? So you said it's an $83,000 grant and we have a $41,000 match, right?
It's a 50-50 where we will match 41,000 and the grant will be 41,000, so it's 82,000, right at 83,000
So the program's
total.
$83,000,
Total.
but the grant is 41.
The match is 41.
Yeah.
It is a 1-to-1.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just like that was not coming through clearly. Okay, I'm good.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Next is Resolution R22-168, a resolution amending the authorized table of positions with the district court by adding 2 full-time positions, amending the 2022 budget and for other purposes. And this item coming to you is represented in the 2023 budget that we'll discuss this evening. By the time we hire these, we'll probably have about 1 month, but it is a neutral cost, and Mr. Burrow will discuss the rest of the item.
Yes, sir. So for the last couple of years, probation has been contracted outside of district court. This last year, we've had a couple issues. Last year, and getting into this year, we had some major issues that we had to do a 10-day cure, a letter to probation, which they did not respond back to the issues that we were having at hand. This had to do with the contract and the governing bodies as well, of reporting certain numbers to those governing bodies. So we asked for, to bring probation back in-house that we can have full control over it. We crunch numbers, and the best that we're at this point in time, we have approximately 1,300 defendants on probation. We broke it down and it got to the point of what was a reasonable figure of what would pay. We know a percentage will not pay, or could have warrants. There's a lot of other variables involved in that. We did have a probation fund that has about $300,000 in it that we'll use for the match part of it, and will also be the startup part for our probation. But crunching those numbers, we will have enough that it should be a wash with our 2 probation officers in-house that will take care of those positions.
So the probation officers currently are on contract?
They did not, no, well, they were contracted in district court for the last couple of years, and we're asking to bring it back into where they're.
Right, and
city
were they
employees.
physically located in what was called the McGrew Center now, or is that?
No, the district court's actually housed in district court
Yeah,
in the
okay.
building, in the district court building.
But the probation officers were in there as well?
Yes, sir.
Just a little history. We contracted out for the first time in 2018. Since that time, over the past 4 years, we've had 3 different contractors. It's been very difficult to manage the probation services through the contract agencies. And as we discussed this with the judges and Mr. Burrow, it does appear that the revenue intake from the probation fees will cover the cost of 2 full-time employees as it was in 2017 and prior. It's got the fund has a little over 300,000 in a fund balance currently. That'll get us to the point of starting to have those collections come back into the district court clerks.
We do have it set up now that it is ready to go as far as the context part of it, how we receive payments to our deputy clerks. So nobody will touch the money other than our deputy clerks in the window.
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Are 2 probation officers enough to handle 1,300 individuals on probation?
Right, so 1,300 on probation. Let's be unrealistic. Well, those that have warrants don't show up out of state. You're looking at about 700 to 800 that are really on probation at this point. So there could be 1,300. We could have, I didn't run the report, but we could have 200, 250 that have active warrants that we just haven't put our hands on, that they've just not been picked up or served that warrant. So two full-time probation officers should be able to handle that, and after a year and it creates the revenue, then we can come back and ask for a third if that's the case.
But what happens to the ones that don't show up?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, that's any state, any county with warrants. I mean, if somebody knows that they've got an active warrant, whether it be district court or whether it be like a fail to comply, fail to appear, or even a circuit court warrant, until they get pulled over for a violation or they get picked up and, their names ran through the system, there's no way to really know that.
Well, that's the concern, because every day the arrest, it's usually someone on probation, just like today's article, someone on probation arrested for
I mean,
more
but you can als-
crimes.
Yes, ma'am, but you can also have district court probation misdemeanor, and you can also have federal. There's several different probation departments of really, who that really belongs to.
So the ones that you're referring to are only for district court?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And a lot of the work will fall on the deputy clerk, and we'll be discussing that position a little bit later too, with an addition of a deputy clerk in the 23 budget.
And does our finance department have oversight of the cash receipts?
All of that's collected does come through our finance department.
Okay.
I mean,
It's
it's
reconciled out every
Yeah,
month. It's
every month.
reconciled out of where district court pays out
yeah.
the entities. The
Yeah,
agencies.
I just recall a few years ago when there was some, I think that was part of going to this contract, but I'm not sure, but we had receipts not being recorded.
Yeah,
So you can still balance out at the end of the day of what, if you,
that was an issue with another agency, but
a
yes.
different one.
Yeah.
A
But it
diff-
was at, okay.
Well, it was
It's still same time.
it was a court issue, but it was a different agency. It wasn't a Hot Springs agency.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R-22-169, a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement for animal control services between Garland County and the City of Hot Springs. And Mr. Albright will cover this item.
Believe it or not, the City of Hot Springs and Garland County have been working together on animal control across the county since August 16th of 1999. We've had a very good relationship with the county in that regard. This ordinance or this resolution would approve the agreement for 2023. It would allow for the city to provide animal control services for residents in the unincorporated areas of Garland County. The city will provide the necessary personnel to provide the services. In an effort to provide for more comprehensive service in the countywide basis, both governments have created a system to provide efficient and equitable services to both city and county residents. And so to that end, Garland County's cost-sharing agreement with the city would compensate the city for half of the division's operating expense. The estimated budget for 2023 minus the amount that we spend for the Bark Park, which is approximately $5,100, is $411,707. That's the county share of the budget, and that will be paid in monthly installments as usual. The county will be providing a truck in 2023, and the city also is budgeting a truck for 2023. Yes, ma'am.
When paying property taxes, if individual marks a voluntary contribution for animal control, where does that money go?
Goes to the county treasurer.
All of it, even if you're a city resident?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions?
I'll add that any fines and fees associated with each independent agency such as that, which is a voluntary payment, but fees that are collected at animal shelter, fines that are issued in court, whether it's a city county case, go to the agency where that originated.
Thank
My
you.
understanding is that additional amount that they collect is used for their spay and neuter program.
So it doesn't go to
It doesn't go to this contract, I
To
don't
this
think. I think it
operation.
funds their spay and neuter.
That's my understanding as well.
Thank you.
Now, you indicated that the county was going to buy a truck. Now, we're providing the manpower, correct?
Yes,
And-
sir.
And so if there's a call out in the county, what are we driving over
Oh,
there?
that's a great question. All of the vehicles are prominently affixed with logos of county and city government. All trucks are countywide responders. They have zones that they deal with, but any truck could go to any portion of the county, whether that's inside the city limits or other portions of the unincorporated portions of the county.
They typically purchase a truck every 5th year and replace the previous truck.
But it's our staff going out and collecting the animals, right?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes. And so that's why they contribute a little over $400,000 a year toward that budget.
So I'm just trying to figure out, do our staff get in their truck?
No, sir. All trucks are mobile and ready to go countywide and affixed with logos of both agencies.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I understand. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How many trucks total? do
That
they
is a
have?
really good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Not just two. I mean, we're replacing two
Right.
trucks. There's a bunch more than two.
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
I
I think
apologize.
they have 4 or 5 in the fleet with 4 out on the road,
Okay. So we have 4 people that are out
pretty much.
on basically
I
animal.
think that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on the animal control contract? Thank you.
Next, we have the first item under your new business, and we'll just call the next 5 items the Kathy Selman Show. All of these belong to our Department of Planning and Development. It's Resolution R-22-170, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 215 Television Hill Road a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. And Ms. Selman.
Thank you very much. This structure was damaged by a fire in May of this year, and we have photos dated October 5th that demonstrate that the condition of the structure has not changed from the time of that fire. The building official deems the building unsafe. As you know, the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, Volume 2, Building, Section 116.1 sets out the standards for that designation, and this has been found to be unsafe. The owners, Ms. Ann Pham and Mr. Jeremy Nguyen, after being notified of the condemnation proceedings, obtained a demo permit on October 6th to begin removal of the structure. Having allowed ample time to make repairs and because of the damage that was called, and having no reasonable alternative, we are requesting that the board approve condemnation so that the structure can be raised and removed. And I would like to acknowledge that we've had a number of neighbors who call regularly to let us know about the lack of progress on fixing this. And I know that they are wanting this structure to go away. I was there yesterday afternoon. There has been no progress.
And when was their demolition permit taken out?
October 6th.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you.
Next, we have Resolution R22-171, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 1400 Hobson Avenue a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. Ms. Selman.
Thank you. Photos, again, dated October 5th, will demonstrate that building maintenance has been neglected to the point on this vacant single-family home or a vacant home that the studs and sills on the exterior walls on both the north and west sides of the structure have deteriorated to the point of collapse, resulting in bowing and loss of the siding and stucco. The building official, per Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, has deemed the building unsafe. The current owner of the property, Mr. Zach Hammonds, purchased the property in 2018. Again, ample time has been allowed to make repairs, and due to the extent of deterioration and having no reasonable alternative at this time, we are recommending that the structure should be raised and removed. And again, I visited the site yesterday afternoon. It's ready to go on its own if someone doesn't remove it first.
Any questions of Ms. Selman on this item? Thank you.
No, I'm just glad.
Resolution R22-172, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 357 Holly Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code.
Thank you. You will receive photos dated October 5th demonstrating that the building is not secured against entry and in fact is missing a structural wall, and therefore the building official deems the building unsafe. After being notified of our intention to bring this property to the board for condemnation, ownership of the property changed hands in February of this year when owner George Bennett sold the property to Ms. Charlotte Dean of Charlotte Buys and Sells Investments, LLC. Again, ample time has been allowed for repair, and due to the extent of deterioration and having no reasonable alternative, we recommend that the structure should be raised and removed at this time.
Have we secured service?
Have we?
We have not secured service.
Mayor, members of the board, at your pleasure, the department can continue to seek service throughout this week and leave this on your agenda. If service is obtained, you can keep it on the agenda. If not, we'll ask that it get pulled next week, or you can pull it now, whichever you prefer.
If I may, I've exchanged multiple emails with, sorry. I've exchanged multiple emails with Miss Dean and I'm trying to get to the same place she is when she's there so that she can sign the hand delivery. At this point, I haven't been able to physically meet with her, but when I do, I will get her to sign the paper so that I can put that in your packets.
Does she reside in the city?
She is here in the city, yes, sir. And she told me to drop it off at her project house over on Park Avenue. I believe it's 685 Park Avenue, right there at the corner of Park and Bauer. But she wasn't there to sign. So even though I've dropped one copy off, I don't have her signature. But I am confident she will be here next week if regardless of whether she signs anything, I'm confident she'll be here. Thank you.
Well, this is more of a procedural thing and making sure we check the box, so what extra efforts are we able to extend between now and next Tuesday to secure a signature evidencing being served?
Yeah, we have made numerous attempts, and it doesn't appear that she is intentionally not where we expect her to be. We will continue to make efforts every day
All right.
until we get it.
So to the degree that there has been communication and just maybe passing by each other on the street or something, we could just keep it on until next Tuesday, and if we have to pull it, we pull it.
Thank you.
Any further questions on this? Thank you.
Next is your first ordinance of the evening. It's ordinance O-2244, an ordinance amending the zoning map to designate CTR zoning at 520 Lakeshore Drive and for other purposes. Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you. This is property in District 4, as are all of the remaining properties that we have for you today. This is something of an unusual situation. Planning Commission approved a site plan in 2021. And at that time, the owner stated his intent to operate short-term rental cabins. However, 6 months following that approval, the Board of Directors amended the short-term rental ordinance by reducing the 500-unit cap in residential zones to 400. Given that when I came up here, I think we were hitting about 405 on the number of licenses. It's unlikely that this new construction project will be ready in time for his cabins to be able to go through the special use permit and licensing procedures, as he has not begun the project at this time. It's about 15.77 acres. It's a meets and bounds piece of ground, not part of a subdivision. It's pretty well separated from the area around it. The zoning in the area, there is some residential, which is developed. There is some undeveloped residential. And there is also a significant amount of C4 regional commercial zoning in the area. Much of the area immediately around this is undeveloped and wooded. However, not all. There are some single-family homes in the area. The applicant makes the case in his application that the property demonstrates compatibility with surrounding zoning, and when they approved the site plan in December of last year, Planning Commission also found compatibility with adjacent development and zoning. The zoning, when he came for the approval of the site plan for the short-term rental cabins, was R4, as it is now. And the requested zone is CTR, commercial transition. The commercial transition uses are essentially the same as R4, with the exception that there are a few non-residential uses that are okay in that zone district, but they all require conditional use approval by Planning Commission. So the array of uses, while all would be available potentially should this be rezoned, those that could be done without further Planning Commission approval are limited to residential, and what he is proposing was okay under the R4 zoning and would continue to be okay because he has an approved site plan, should you approve this zoning. The circumstances around the development haven't changed. What has changed in this case, and again, this is very, very unusual, is that the license cap for residential zones, which is a significant other condition, as Hot Springs Code 16-11E states, a significant other condition is a standard for which rezoning can be considered. So this was a kind of a unanticipated consequence of the change in the cap number. The applicant is requesting to do the same project now that he would have done before. This would enable him to go forward with short-term rentals as he originally stated he would do. Planning Commission heard this item, excuse me, after advertising it on October 13th, and they voted 7-0 to recommend that the board approve an ordinance changing the zoning map, and found that the change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development zoning, responds to a significant change in economic or other conditions, those other conditions being the short-term rental cap reduction to 400 that becomes effective in January 23, and the change is consistent with the objectives of the zoning code as required by Hot Springs Code 16-11E and as demonstrated by Planning Commission's prior approval of the site plan. And that is the conclusion there.
Now, they were approved with their site plan, you said back in December?
Yes.
Of last year?
Yes,
And then we changed the cap when?
January. No, when did we
It
change
was
the
like
cap?
June or July?
June or July.
It was, right.
July, I think.
But he had made no movement for
He
6 months?
states in his application that the change in the cap and the likelihood that the cap would be met prior to the end of 2022 has caused questions being asked by potential financing people and investors. The business model for the project that was approved by Planning Commission was a short-term rental project with 30 cabins, which was feasible at that time, given the regulations that we had on short-term rentals that allowed up to 500 licenses to be issued.
I understand that. I just, the project never really got going before.
It did not.
Before we even gave any thought to maybe reducing the,
True.
Yes.
I mean, I mean, in fairness, you're talking about 30 individual cabins. There's no way he could have constructed his business plan in that short of amount of time.
But he could have gotten
So-
financing and started.
To what end? Not knowing if he'd have approval?
No, from 2021 till July or August of 22, he was not able to obtain financing before any cap was changed.
Well, I think that's information that the applicant is in a better position to provide than we are. I am not his advocate. I am carrying the information that he provided, and I'm sure that he can provide far more detail than I am.
Good point.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. It was just a question because, there had been no movement and the cap was a mid-year decision.
Well,
So
I
the-
will say this, that many people doing construction were delaying starting projects because of the very high cost of materials and also the uncertainty about when those materials would be delivered. And I don't know what the applicant himself will tell you, but that is something that we heard from numerous applicants in this COVID and post-COVID period.
So, commercial transitional is not subject to any cap, correct?
Correct?
So, Lance, what is our number right now on the approved STRs in residential
It's
zones?
about 405.
Yeah,
405.
we're
405.
right around there. With the special use permits for this month just closed, and those approvals were underway when I came up the stairs this afternoon. So we are over 400.
Yeah, November 1 is our cutoff. or
Yes.
October 31 is. Director Holliday.
Yeah, I have a question. So typically when we look at rezones, we're looking at the zone, not the potential use on the site. And although this person has a unique situation where we are provided with more information than we would otherwise, and a site plan has been approved, still at the end of the day, we're looking at whether or not zoning is appropriate for the
Yes.
space, not whether or not we want 30 cabins.
Yep, absolutely correct.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I would think based on the scale of this property in an R4 and what the return on investment would be regardless of cabins, CTR gives them some latitude, whereas they may or may not have made the investment if all they could do was R4 residential otherwise.
I really don't know what went into the decision to acquire the land.
It's a tough lot.
Yeah. But, I mean, something to consider along what you're proposing is that in R4, there can be 12 units per acre. There can be multifamily development on this property, so I don't think it's a density issue.
Right. And that 12 is a without further planning commission approval number. With further planning commission approval, they can exceed that number. So,
So the notice to the neighborhood, your standard sign?
Yeah.
Nobody came forward and expressed any concern?
none.
Okay.
I've got a quick question.
Director.
So if we change the zoning and he decides he doesn't want to do this, what else could go in there instead of what he wants?
Without further planning commission approval, the same uses that can go there now with R4. I do not have the code in front of me, and I don't want to make up uses. But there are some fairly low-impact commercial activities that could be placed there with planning commission approval
You
of
see
a
where I'm
conditional
coming
use.
from? If we change the zoning and he can't get his financing, or he changes his mind, or whatever, what else could go there that might be a detriment or an asset to that area?
Right, they
with
would,
that
they
new
would be low-impact commercial uses, yes.
Thank you.
Director Garcia?
The current is R4.
Yes.
And that allows for residential housing, can be garden homes,
Yeah.
apartments,
Yes.
duplexes. So, in that we are having this study regarding our not study, the action plan we have to develop for our responses to HUD, and what we are doing for improving affordable housing, which I believe that duplexes, fourplexes, apartments are housing that can help in that area. How do we respond to their questions, or if there's anything you can add in our packet regarding this, when we continue to change to take away residential long-term housing availability by changing these zoning codes? Because if apartments went in there, a number of long-term housing could be made, or
Right.
I mean, you know, in my mind, we keep doing this over and over, and yet we say, what can we do for housing? We need more, we don't have enough inventory and we don't have housing, but we continue to make changes to allow for non-housing to go into this acreage, in this example.
Yeah, I mean, this is a balancing act.
Right.
There's no question.
Okay.
The current landowner's business model was for 30 short-term rental cabins, and changing the zone, and again, other things can go there, but other things can go there now. His choice is this, but again, that's his choice. Does this add this specific set of facts to providing affordable workforce housing? Absolutely not. But there's more to it than that. And the code anticipated that in 16211E by saying that a change in other circumstances, such as changing the cap in the short-term rental ordinance, is sufficient, hypothetically, in the eyes of the code in approving a change. And this is a tough one. There's no question. We struggled with it as well.
Yeah, because the interest rates, you know, from the time he got his approval have significantly increased, so it would cost more for financing had the financing been obtained on the front end to get a contract, even if materials were late coming in.
Yeah.
So
And-
it's hard. Is this the owner or the applicant is the owner of the
He is the
property?
owner.
Not a seller?
He is the owner.
Because property was for sale, and it was just recently taken off the market. It was for sale
He bought-
recently.
He has owned it for quite some time.
2020.
So he
Yeah.
had it for sale even after he applied for the short-term rental.
I can't answer that. I don't know.
The 30 units, I guess he was approved for the 30 units. Is that that's not part of the 405? His 30 units, you get into
No.
the cap?
No.
Or it's
No.
not part of the
No.
405?
No. In order to apply for the special use permit and then the license, there has to be a certificate of occupancy. And where there is no structure, there is not that.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Just if the applicant will be here.
Oh, I'm certain of that, yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have ordinance O-2245, an ordinance approving PD zoning plan development at 401 Birchwood Bay Road to correct an error in previous city action and for other purposes. Oh, it's amending an ordinance, actually.
Yes. And if you thought the previous one was unusual, so is this. If you'll travel back in time with me, the time that we did a number of annexations, you'll remember A and B, very large annexations, hundreds, maybe thousands of lots. This seeks to correct a mapping error that occurred at the time of initial zoning for the lands in annexation area A. This isn't a rezone. This is fixing a map error. At the time of the annexation, because of a whole lot of other circumstances that were going on, a permanent zoning was not assigned for a long time. That complicated things, of course, but it did give us quite a while to visit the sites, take a look at what was going on there, and try to figure out what was the best zoning to assign to each lot, respecting the existing uses so that we didn't create unanticipated problems for the owners by creating non-conforming uses, which people would be stuck in time with and wouldn't be able to improve or, whatever. We visited each site 3 times, some more than that. And the result of those visits was a giant spreadsheet, which was included in the ordinance 6542, which you looked at in 2016. There was a map that went along with the spreadsheet that illustrated the amendments to the zoning map if those zones were approved for those lots. And they were approved. However, when it came to coloring in one of the parcels, it didn't get the right color. This is a lot that is part of a tax parcel at 401 Birchwood Bay Road, and the rest of the land that went with it, because of its mixed-use nature, a PD zone was deemed to be the best zone to go there and to support the existing development. But instead of coloring this part of the parcel PD, it was colored RL. You'll remember this, I know, we had open houses. We met individually with the property owners. We discussed the proposed zones. We asked them about their future plans. Were they going to make changes? And this was not something that we entered into lightly. And PD was the zone that was determined to be best for 401 Birchwood Bay Road. And had we colored it in all as PD, then that would have happened, but it didn't. So we're just asking you to help us fix the map.
Any questions of Kathy on this one? And this did this go through the planning commission?
did.
Okay.
It did.
Any issues there?
No.
Any further questions from directors? Director Trustee?
How did you find this particular error on
Well,
the map? The owner? or
The
something
owner
else?
applied to do a short-term rental. And he was told, you have to do a special use permit, you're in an R zone. He said, no, I'm not in an R zone, I'm PD. I met with you, you told me it was PD, we did, and, but that is not the way the map turned out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Director Garcia?
The PD is under the cap as well, isn't it?
N-
For new,
New PDs,
A
but
new
this
PD.
is an old
okay,
PD.
this was one that was grandfathered in with annexation.
This
Okay.
was assigned at annexation,
That's what I
and
mean.
the
Okay.
ordinance that you have would take it back to that time, ab initio, and would make them whole, as it were.
Ordinance 6255 changed the zoning to PD by text. We have two factors in our zoning code, text and map. The map is incorrect. That's not the fault of the property owner, that's human error.
Right.
Our box of 64 crayons didn't get in the sharpener. So,
It's getting the map in sync with the text.
yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So did he get his STR?
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
The map's still wrong.
That's why he's asking for
Fix
this.
this.
Is there a structure on the,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. There are several structures.
Okay.
Yep.
And he
This
has
is-
time to still be able to get it all taken care of?
This
He's-
is Sam, this
he's
is
fine.
Sam's Pizza.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with that
Yeah.
location.
It's what?
All right.
I'm sorry.
Sam's Pizza.
Oh.
Okay. Any, next item?
Next item is ordinance O-2246, an ordinance approving C4 zoning at 825 Airport Road, amending the future land use plan map and for other purposes. And Ms. Selman.
Thank you. This one's pretty normal.
Oh,
But
now,
not
it's
completely.
split. It's split.
Wait a minute now.
Not completely. This is a split zoned piece of land. There is C4 zoning in the front, the street frontage, and the back half of the lot is R2 residential suburban. Mr. Aaron Burrows is representing the property owner, Mr. Pat Hobbs, and he is asking for C4 zoning for the back 1 acre of land at 825 Airport Road. It has future land use classifications of residential low and linear commercial corridor. Again, it's in District 4. This is almost 2 acres of land, and it's split just about 50-50. The back half of the land does have, or did have, I'm not sure it still does, had a structure there, and it is no longer desirable to use this as a home. So they are asking to bring the back of the property into agreement with the front half with a C4 zone. Planning Commission advertised this meeting and called for testimony on October 13th. They have voted 7-0 to accept the staff report findings and recommendations, to recommend that you approve an ordinance amending the zoning map from R2 Suburban Residential District to C4 Regional Commercial Open Display for this split zone property at 825 Airport Road, and to amend the subject property's future land use plan map designation for the back half to linear commercial corridor as the front is already at this time.
Any
That's all.
questions of Kathy on this last action item? Hearing none. Thank you all. This concludes all those action items that will be formally addressed next Tuesday evening, November 1, at 6 p.m. right here at City Hall. So, thank you all.